Cheddar? Open. Where is he? Yep, great, cool, because this is exactly what happens when your buddy's not here to do the show that you promised you'd do together, but hey, whatever. Where's this light switch again?
Zo, ik heet die Frode Silverskoda. Ik eigen Marger Kapmouder te Celia. Ik say eiger Kapmouder. V2 Ther via Chem. Fang Selder. Toothessy Groff.
Hang on, can we get the translator? They gave us a translator. Won't let us into the coffee room. Excuse me. Okay. Try that again.
Saxon Coward.
So this is how this episode is starting. Great, cool. Stay right there.
I can understand your tongue.
Yeah, just back up a little bit. You're perfect. Stay here. My partner's not here. We're doing a show for the library. And you are perfect height for it.
Oh.
So come here.
Yeah.
Great. You mind if I call you Cheddar?
My name is Frode the Silver Snip. Did Aggie set you up to this? Because I only snipped his silver 10 times when I wasn't supposed to. Only 10, not 11.
I don't know who that is. Listen, man, I know it's October, so I'm just going to let this slide for right now. But you're here. I need your help with this. We're trying to do a show to help tell people what's going on at the library and educate them about certain things. Why do you have a horn?
To forget this experience?
Well, while our friend Frode the Silver Snip here is getting associated with whatever this is, welcome readers, perusers, and bibliophiles of all kinds. I'm Stone Cold Jane Austen, and he's not here. Welcome to this month's episode of PowerLines, where we'll cover events, programs, and goings-on at the Palm Harbor Library, including Last Call, which is thankfully pre-recorded with this month's book, My Heart is a Chainsaw. But this month we have a continuing content warning for blood and a little bit of violence, as well as some other things. Like always, it's going to be said at the end of this episode, so make sure to stick around until that point if that's not what you're into.
Blood?
That's not the time. I'm just gonna take that. And now it's time for this month's nuggets of Kidsdom. Oh God, Frode.
Hello everybody, Miss Marissa here from the Children's Room, ready to tell you about some fun October events coming up. We have a lot of spooky things coming up for you. Friday the 7th, we have Great Explorations back. You might know Great Explorations Children's Museum. And this time they'll be doing art out of the box. Now this is for ages 4 to 8. Registration required. Sign up for that. It's on Friday the 7th at 3:30 and spots are filling up fast for that. Our First Steps program. Now this is a parent or caregiver child workshop. So basically what you do, you sign up for it. That signs you up for all 4 Wednesdays in October. 10:30, right after Mother Goose time, and you come into the room. We have it set up with all kinds of things to play with. We have an art activity, we have a community specialist. It is a fabulous time. You will not want to miss it. It's so good. So sign up for that. Now that's an in-person registration, and that's geared for ages 1 to 3 with siblings, if they're not. Tuesday the 18th, Legos are back. Come free build, have a good time. We will be voting for our favorite Lego creation and display it in the children's room. And that one here is geared for 5 to 12 thereabouts. No registration on that, so. Toddlers, you want to check this out on Tuesday the 11th, Music with Mare. She's bringing Mr. Froggy. 1 p.m., be there or be square. Are you as excited as we are for the Hocus Pocus 2 movie? We are so excited. Okay, so this is what we're doing for it. We're not just showing Hocus Pocus, the original, throwing it back. No. We're making it interactive. Hocus Pocus interactive movie night. Yeah, you're not going to want to miss this. This is happening on Wednesday, October 19th. And this is kind of for all ages. So For this one, be sure to, if you're signing up, because we do have a sign up so we know how many kits to prepare, you're gonna want to sign up the grown-ups and the kids separately. And you know, this is a good time. If you haven't seen Hocus Pocus, man, you really need to come. If you have seen Hocus Pocus, come for a really unique event. Feel free to dress up. There's also gonna be a craft, and of course, those interactive movie elements. If you've never done an interactive movie, this will be an experience for you. And we're getting a little baddie around here, so you can join us on Thursday the 20th for Bats of the World. Now this is really exciting because this is Tampa Bay Bats. They are actually going to bring some live bats. And you know, they're not going to turn into vampires, so you guys are good. It's going to be the time, it's at 5 o'clock. And this is a registration one too because they don't want to overwhelm the bats. This is, you know, an all ages event as well. But for this one, we say register kids only. And it's all in, you know, the calendar, the online calendar too, or come see us, we can tell you more about it, but ooh, that one's filling up. So you do want to get in for Bats of the World. The 21st, the Palm Harbor Library is going to be, not at the Palm Harbor Library, what? We are gonna go to Harbor Hall / the Whitechapel because it is time for the Halloween Carnival with Parks and Rec. Are you ready? It is called Till Death Do Us Part. It's very spooky. So we will be providing, as always, the haunted house, and we'll also be there if you just want to come and do some trick-or-treating, show off that costume. There's gonna be, they've got like drinks and food to buy, and it's gonna be a good time. Yeah, the trick-or-treating, of course, is free. You know, it's gonna be a really good time. So you should check that out on the Palm Harbor Parks and Rec website for more info on that, but we will be there, will you? We got our anime club meeting for the tweens. Of course, that's monthly. The next meeting for that is Wednesday the 26th at 5. And, oh, Kids Fiber Art Fun. That's on Saturday the 29th. Now, you know this is a Miss Chris program, so she's gonna have something tying in the fall season, maybe a little spooky here and there. And for this one, this is geared for ages 8 to 12. And what we recommend is kids should be kind of familiar with a sewing needle for this one. So be sure to register for that. It's at 2 on the 29th. And very importantly, October is our annual Halloween costume swap. That will be running all month. Bring in a gently used costume or a new one if you never used it. Trade it out for one of ours. If you don't have one to swap, you can make a $5 donation and we'll get you set up. We got trick-or-treating at the library on Halloween because Halloween's on a Monday today. Anytime starting at 3 o'clock that day, come show off your costume before you go out and trick-or-treat and get some more goodies. Like, why not? You know, we'll be dressed up. Come see us. We'll see you. It'll be a grand time, and you can come around and say trick-or-treat at all those special stations, and this is for all ages. Find out more information on www.palmharborlibrary.org or follow us on Facebook. Did you know the adult Facebook? There's a Facebook page for Palm Harbor Library, but there's also Palm Harbor Library Kids. You might want to follow both of those. That's a good one. Okay, I'm out, y'all.
As always, that's your nuggets of Kidsdom. I don't have a host anymore. I don't know what happened to Frode. He went into a blinding light. So, I guess we should move on to contests.
Contests. Abraham Parnassus Jr. of the Urana Restoration recently just shot out of his battle mech and reported for duty.
Oh boy, we're going again.
I heard there's a contest. You know how to win a contest, son? Crush your enemies! Grind their bones into the dust of the earth from whence they came.
Or we can just do things like we normally do, and we're going to start with speed scroll, where our contestants are charged with reading it as fast as they can, with punctuation optional, pronunciation critical. And that's on you.
Speed is life. That's why I've survived 15 engagements in a locust and 23 in a spider 5K.
Oh, Cheddar was trying to get me into Battletech. You're one of those,
You
aren't
ain't
you?
a Steiner, are you? Excuse
Yeah.
you. The proper term is mech warrior,
Okay,
son.
yeah, okay. Hang on. Do you want to just hang on? I need a host. Again, you're the perfect height. Stay here.
You're paying me.
No one's paying us.
From young author Isaac Paget comes a gripping story of Jack, a young thief whose only goal is to prove his love. Forces at work beyond his sight have other plans, though, and he is thrust into a race against demons to get his hand on a weapon that can, no, will, change history forever. Who can he trust when those closest to him have a knack for betrayal? Jack must push through and beat his enemies, all while trying to protect those he loves. Get your copy now on Amazon Kindle.
He glared back at that, but stopped arguing. Fine, I need you to convince Jack to join me. I already know how you're going to react, but honestly, it is really in everyone's best interest. You have to trust me, whether you like it or not. I don't want anything to happen to anyone. I'm just a thief, not a murderer. I'm being forced to do this, but I don't think it's too late yet. It can still be called off if we hurry and get Jack to join.
He glared back but stopped arguing. Fine, I need you to convince Jack to join me. I already know how you're going to react, but honestly, it is in everyone's best interest. You have to trust me whether you like it or not. I don't want anything to happen to anyone. I'm just a thief, not a murderer. I've been forced to do this, but I don't think it's too late yet. It can still be called off if we hurry and get Jack to join.
He glared back at that, but stopped arguing. Fine, I need you to convince Jack to join me. I already know how you're going to react, but honestly, it really is in everyone's best interest. You have to trust me whether you like it or not. I don't want anything to happen to anyone. I'm just a thief, not a murderer. I'm being forced to do this, but I don't think it's too late yet. I can still be called off if we hurry and get Jack to join.
He glared back at that, but stopped arguing. Fine, I need you to convince Jack to join me. I already know how you're going to react, but honestly, it really isn't in everyone's best interest. You have to trust me whether you like it or not. I don't want anything to happen to anyone. I'm just a thief, not a murderer. I'm being forced to do this, but I don't think it's too late yet. It can still be called off if we hurry and get Jack to join.
He glared back at that, but stopped arguing. Fine, I need you to convince Jack to join me. I already know how you're going to react, but honestly, it really is in everyone's best interest. You have to trust me, whether you like it or not. I don't want anything to happen to anyone. I'm just a thief, not a murderer. I'm being forced to do this, but I don't think it's too late yet. It can still be called off if we hurry and get Jack to join.
How about that? Were our contestants fast enough for you, Mr. Parnassus?
They were fast, but whether they would actually survive in the real life under heavy artillery barrage and...
You know what? You look like you're a little emotional right now, which ties into our emotional readings of PowerLines.
a little emotional. A little feeling of
No.
finally...
God, where do you people keep getting these?
I got that off of you reading them on
can't
30
have
pages.
these.
You know how long it takes
It's fine. We just have
to destroy a DRG-1N with only one medium laser and one
No.
machine gun array?
No one knows how long that takes.
I do. And if they want to feel fear, they'll do it too.
Don't look at them. Don't look at them. Leave them here. You can have this back. Just don't look at the camera. You're terrifying. Anyways, this contest is to see if people can draw out emotion, which usually Cheddar's pretty emotional, but I would like to pride myself on the fact that I've felt nothing so far other than joy at these wondrous readers.
Let's put you in a locust and see what happens.
Enough with the bugs, man. Anyway, this month's emotion is fear, and it's coming straight from the pages of The Tormented King.
Does that make you afraid?
No, but I can smell the Vita Orange.
Good stuff.
From author Victor V. Verbicus III, a high fantasy adventure quest series, The Epics of Dijredel. Immerse yourself in a tormented king and follow Dijon, king of Dijredel. You'll meet him halfway through his personal journey. Burdened with knowing his own destiny and driven by a desire to be a successful king, he must face his fears and choose his kingdom's longevity or his life. You may foresee the ending of some tales, but destiny still leaves room for surprise. Get your copy, paperback, hardcover, or Amazon Kindle.
But how? She was just in another room. She went in the opposite direction. How could she have moved so quickly? He became increasingly paranoid, thinking of the answers and uncovering none. Voices flooded his mind, and his right eye began to twitch. He watched as Helga handed Algernon a letter, but he couldn't make out a word they said. Soon they were leaving the room, and he had to hide. So he climbed into his servant's chambers, a small closet with a straw bed. He held his breath as they passed, hoping not to be caught.
But She was just in another room. She went in the opposite direction. How could she have moved so quickly? He became increasingly paranoid, thinking of answers and uncovering none. Voices flooded his mind as his right eye began to twitch. He watched as Helga handed Ajulan a letter, but he couldn't make out a word they said. Soon they were leaving the room and he had to hide, so he climbed into a servant's chambers, a small closet with a straw bed. He held his breath as they passed, hoping not to be caught.
But how? She was just in another room. She went in the opposite direction. How could she have moved so quickly? He became increasingly paranoid, thinking of answers and uncovering none. Voices flooded his mind and his right eye began to twitch. He watched as Helga handed Ajulan a letter, but he couldn't make out a word they said. Soon they were leaving the room and he had to hide, so he climbed into a servant's chamber, a small closet with a little straw bed. He held his breath as they passed, hoping not to be caught.
But how? She was just in another room. She went in the opposite direction. How could she have moved so quickly? He became increasingly paranoid, thinking of answers and uncovering none. Voices flooded his mind as his right eye began to twitch. He watched as Helga handed Ajulan a letter, but he couldn't make out a word they said. Soon they were leaving the room and he had to hide, so he climbed into a servant's chambers, a small closet with a little straw bed. He held his breath as they passed, hoping not to be caught.
But how? She was just in another room. She went in the opposite direction. How could she have moved so quickly? He became increasingly paranoid, thinking of answers and uncovering none. Voices flooded his mind to his right eye. As his right eye began to twitch, he watched as Helga handed Ajulan a letter, but he couldn't make out a word they said. Soon they were leaving the room and he had to hide. So he climbed into the servant's chambers, a small closet with a little straw bed. He held his breath as they passed, hoping not to be caught.
And how does that make you feel, Mr. Abraham Parnassus? What's with the helmet? Where did you get the helmet?
I don't like it.
Are you afraid, perhaps?
Back in my first mech.
Oh, hang on. No, okay, hang on. No, don't. Why do I keep doing this? Why does his hand only destroy good hosts? No. Whether you're finishing up a job application or simply just working on a school project, there's no better place than the Palm Harbor Library, where there's always a staff member on hand to help you with whatever you may need. And even if it's a busy day and all the computers are full, you still have access to our library's Wi-Fi. Simply access it with a smartphone or similar device and you'll be right on your way to finishing up whatever it is you may need.
And this is what you call a catalytic converter?
Yeah, I figured that interests you a bit more than silver. Well, I guess since Cheddar's not here, my hand has all the magic, so watch this cool transition wipe.
Back again to tell you about Magical Evening happening on October 8th at 7 p.m. This is a wonderful 21 plus event, so make sure you book your babysitter. We are having beer brought to you by Stillhouse and food catered by Corporate Catering of Palm Harbor. All that is included in your ticket, along with 4 magicians for the evening. You can check out our Facebook page on our Palm Harbor Library page. The event is right there. Also, if you go on the homepage of our website, you'll find it there as well. I did hear there's a sweet new video that was made for it, so check that out. We hope to see you there. Make sure you get your tickets before the event. They are $5 less than at the event. You can still get them at the event though. We'll see you there. Join us!
I'll be there to crush the enemies into the ground, grind their bones into the dust of the earth from whence they came.
No, he won't, sadly. He won't. He's gotta go home to wherever. Fwah! Man, I can't believe Cheddar's missing all this. And I think it's just about that time to move on to Palm Periodicals, which
Citizen, our required directions to the nearest ultramarine outpost. Not cerulean, not aquamarine, ultramarine.
Okay. Is it the color? Is that okay? Wow. This
Third Regiment.
Oh my God, you're another perfect fit for the hype. Thank you so much. Okay, so everybody, this is our new host.
Cato Socarius, captain of the Third Watch.
We're gonna call him Cat. So Cat now is going to help us do the Palm Periodicals.
Which installation is this?
This is the Palm Harbor Library.
I claim it for McCrog.
You can't. You gotta do some paperwork. You know what? We'll worry about that later because you probably won't stick around that long. Okay, so
Show me the operations.
actually, I can do that.
It says Oct 10, library closed.
Yes, on October the 10th, the library will be shut down for, I believe, the whole day. During the entire month of October, if you have clean, child to teen-sized costumes, you can bring them down here to donate for other people to use. Following this, on October 17th, join the Witty Knitters Club, which is it's a public knitting club where you can just come in and knit whatever you want. Materials provided and such.
They may be claimed for McCrog and its glory.
They can't. They've already got their thing set. You can't do that. Wait. On October 18th, very important, is the Blood Drive and the Shine Consultants Health Group.
It is important that citizens stay healthy and give blood and set up their Medicare.
See? Yeah, that's exactly it. You're getting it. Thank you. I love hitting this definitely ceramic breastplate. Following the 18th, immediately on the 19th, is the Baycare Health Screening, which, again, you agree, right?
Yes.
Citizens should stay healthy.
Yes, they should.
Like us.
I am the specimen of health on McCrog.
I can believe that wholeheartedly. But don't take my word for it, because this is just a small list that we made. But if you go to palmharborlibrary.org, that's palmharborlibrary.org, you can find an entire list of October's events, and if you click on them, you get more information. Please check it out.
That's not written in ultramarine. I did not really have a hand in making that.
Yeah, here, just look at the stuff.
I will not be indoctrinated so easily, citizen.
You doing this again? Okay, none of that. Okay, moving on. All right. You're scary.
And this will have the secrets to their construction.
I mean, it's got their name on it, so it's...
It is 2022. They will have developed the fusion reactor by now.
Did you know like half of all Chevys they make just kind of break down?
So, citizen, is there
Yeah.
anything I need to censure from this program?
Okay, well now that you mention it. So it's come to our attention once again, Robert the Celeritas Cetacean was just, in fact, Bob the Fast-Talking Dolphin, barely even changed. So we do have to retract the fact that he was here and what he said was not very truthful and a lot of other...
What was he saying?
That you could just get the best deals on these cars all around. That, they may be cornered a little bit weird, but they were...
How much was he asking?
He'd probably take you for everything you're wearing and then everything in your wallet as well.
So he would take Imperial credits.
Theoretically, yes. I'm very sure he would. But the good news is we do have a replacement for him, and his name is Roberto Rapido Cetaceo.
So
That sounds familiar. That sounds really...
who was the last one again?
Well, it started off with Bob the Fast-Talking Dolphin, and then it was Robert the Celeritas Cetacean.
And now it's...
Roberto Rapido Cetaceo. This segment is brought to you by Cheddar's Cheesy Minis. Painting miniatures is a passion since 2019. Commissions now open. DM at Ched Cheese Minis on Instagram for details. So at least Cheddar's good for something. He did send me the weird fact we're supposed to cover, which he says that Vikings didn't care where their silver came from. They just shaved it down to make the weight. Is that true?
Silver Snip never tells.
That sounds like fraud.
My name is Frode.
Yeah, okay. I walked into that one. You got me, Frode. This weird fact brought to you by Gaither, Blade, and Bling. We've got everything. Browse a varied and eclectic selection of outdoor gear at gbladebling.biz. Visit our socials and tell them PowerLines sent you with code PALM, that's PALM, for 10% off anything in stock. Orders of over $100 shipped free. International customer? Contact us to help you. As always, Last Call is sponsored by the Palm Harbor Library. Please visit your local library, or this one if you're in town.
Unfortunately, we do not have an interviewer. A staff member who is in charge of Fails and Tales this time was able to submit her opinions in writing, so we will include those as our discussion goes along.
Yes.
As mentioned, we are discussing My Heart is a Chainsaw.
Which, for just in case, does have mature themes, not suitable for everyone. And out of all the books we've done so far, this one is probably my least liked for a handful of different reasons. And I think most of them are valid.
I'm still holding Persuasion as most least liked, but again, as we discussed outside of this, I actually do have a soft spot for horror genre and slashers in general. So for me, while I did have moments in the book where it was hard to get through, especially a lot of people that I researched have said the first 2/3 of the book, it really takes that long to get the action moving.
And I agree.
Yes. It does take a while to get going. If you do not have a good grounding in horror or slashers, you're going to have a hard time. It is extremely referential, so think Scream or Cabin in the Woods, except you have to know the references to understand it. I mean, Scream, I feel you can just sit in and you can be introduced to the genre, but this one, it's so referential, you kind of have to know what you're getting into.
I'm pretty sure it references almost every single regular slasher on the market.
They reference Thanksgiving, which really impressed me.
Which is a weird one to reference, but I understand it.
I mean, Black Christmas was on there. There was the Candyman. There was some.
Candyman's more topical now, but
sure.
Back then, the book takes place in 2015 Ohio, the far-off land of 2015 Ohio, which, to the book's discredit, in my point, why I actually hold Persuasion very barely slightly higher is because that takes place in a further back time period that's interesting to learn about, and is also not 2015 Ohio.
I mean, his way of managing technology, poor cell service in the mountains. It makes sense. It's a little annoying at times.
The main character watches all of her horrors on VHS, pretty much.
Which, I mean, it's really not that uncommon when you're that far out, but...
everyone has the VHS of something.
And...
I guess we should give a plot synopsis of...
Oh gosh, where do you even start?
Very easily. So, where do you start? Right from the beginning.
No, I mean, there's... we'll talk. We'll get.
Let's do the Sparks notes as we go.
Sure. So the main character it's following,
Jennifer Jade Daniels.
Jade. They call me Jader Salad.
Stop. You cannot do the tater salad joke in this. I mean, you already did, but Jennifer Daniels.
Jade.
As she will tell everyone who says it, is troubled. I mean, for the most part, she's your typical
counterculture rebel.
Yep, just typical counterculture rebel. Doesn't constantly says she doesn't have a lot of support from people, but context clues sort of don't line up with that.
I mean, for example, she's actually not graduating, but her history teacher has taken a shining to her and is allowing her to make up the final grades needed to graduate after graduation. And that's just one example that just slaps you right out of the front.
Which his way of letting her do that is the in-between chapters. She writes little synopsises and plot synopsises of the horror genre and dissects it down, basically for anyone that's not a horror buff or a slasher buff like me. The problem I had with that is this book is supposed to be like a love letter to slashers, so why is it explaining slashers to people who would already know it?
Well, Scream does it too.
That's fair.
Cabin in the Woods does it too.
Yeah.
Which Rachel actually pointed out as well.
Right, it's like Cabin in the Woods did this.
Yeah.
That doesn't make it okay. Just for the record. But yes, she has essays she's supposed to do, but the teacher lets her horror dissections. She
lives near a place called Indian Lake. It's got a local haunt story about a girl who, so this lake was created artificially by damming a river, and there was a preacher who kept his congregation in the church as it was flooding, so it became a Christian burial. And then this Indian girl later, she can't actually drown, so she's sort of like stuck on the lake as part of and her jaw gets taken off by a hook at one point.
And here's the thing about that. That takes up all of 5 pages in
and
this.
Then it's on to basic slashers and video slashers in
which
our
we'll get
world.
to that in a
Yes.
while. About why I seem upset about the fact that it only takes up 5 pages.
Yes, we will.
And with all that going on, now, within this modern time, there's a development being, a rich people's development essentially being made. The Founders. Because, I was about to do something you'd have to edit out. But I'll do it in a less edit-outy way. Imagine the kind of people that would go somewhere that was already discovered and call themselves the Founders, and that's the kind of people we're working with.
I will say, they feel like, for the most part, they do feel like they had good intentions, or at least the one did.
They presented it as. The problem is we're seeing it through the lens of Rebel Girl doesn't like anybody.
Right, and there's also, one could say, well, there's also the social commentary of, does she need the help?
Right.
Are they providing the correct help? I mean, the scholarships are kicking in after she graduates.
Correct, which is an issue.
Yes,
I've had a similar, not to compare myself to this character at all, but there's been certain similar things where it's like, we're in school, you'd have to study something, like they pushed it, and then they discovered it wasn't working, so they got rid of it, and then left everyone else that was dealing with it kind of in the dust. Yeah. Springboard. I think we can agree they're just sort of there in the book as far as the adults go, and they really only come in at the ending.
Yes.
This book has a big problem with
pacing.
Not just pacing, but when you finally get that pace, it dumps backstory on you. And then it's just like, feel for these characters, and then does stuff with them.
Friday the 13th is the one I'm thinking of. You actually get some time with most of the characters, so you know who they are. They're goofy camp counselors, and oh no, they're being murdered. In this case, you don't really get that. There is the one character that does give you that. He doesn't actually die.
Yeah, which one?
It's the professor in his plane.
Well, he doesn't die initially.
Right.
So that's the other thing I wanted to bring up about it is that I do like horror. I'm not a slasher buff by any means. However, and I'll even give it to its credit, the movie generally has a bunch of nameless idiots that get killed just to fill up that gore time. The problem is you can't do that with 90% of your cast. And while I can count on my hand 4 characters that I can remember. 2 of them I can remember their role in the story, and 2 I can barely remember. And those are the best ones, and whatever happens to them still doesn't mean anything to me.
I was gonna say, there's a few of them I'm still slightly confused as to whether they actually were dead or not at one point or another.
I feel like it was 90% of the town got.
Oh no, at the end, the town got wiped out.
But we should continue on. So again, the reason why we're not bringing up a lot of these characters is because they don't matter. They matter.
It would take too long to explain their context.
And that's a miscredit to how much they influence this book.
Yes.
As before, the book splits up its chapters with small self-written essays, and that's one of the things I will praise the book with a little bit of salt is it's written out the way someone thinks, which normally I would give 100% good credit for. The problem is there are no transitions. My thing.
We're haunted again.
There you go, thank you. We're still in here.
It actually starts out with a prologue where two Dutch exchange students, and they're out here in the middle of. Okay.
Yeah, they've decided to exchange to Ohio.
And they do the usual.
But also, they're exchange students, and I think in the book they say they drove from somewhere
Right, to visit
this place because later everyone's like, we don't know who these people are.
Right.
So they didn't transfer to this school.
And they do the slasher sin of going skinny dipping, which
That's the worst thing you can do in the middle of winter.
There's that. However, I think what they were trying to do is they were trying to get you to get into the mindset of Jade because it's a very broken, very scattered mindset because you're in her mind for most of this book. And
which it makes sense.
They're practicing their English, and so instead of having the thoughts of an adult, you're having these broken English, and it seems to sort of translate. Not that Jade thinks in broken English or anything, but the jarring cadence of their thoughts, I think, kind of prepares you for how Jade presents herself throughout most of the book.
And I don't. It's only again my own personal thing. That hits you in the face, and it's hard to compensate for at first because it's.
I will say, Rachel actually responded to that, and she
Rachel,
said that,
our interviewee.
Yes, she said that she actually enjoyed Jade's voice. Not quite someone I would have known, but definitely the same genre of person as some people I knew. Also appreciated about how she fantasized about terrible things, but when she's confronted, then she actually does act like you would expect a human to act.
Which, that's fairly typical, I think. It's just, we're all Supermen until we're not. This sort of brings it in a lot of stuff with what she says and does versus what actually is going on, which brings some of her internal thoughts into conflict for me. If she was really a loner, I feel like people would be acting way different to when. So, we talked about how she talks weird. It's also the subject she talks about. So the first scene we get with Jade, which she walks up to 3 random people around a barrel fire, and the scene is described as like mourning, like they're mourning someone who had just passed or something similar.
Didn't have coveralls at the time because she stormed out of her house, and so she took a pair or a set from them.
Yeah, she just borrowed a pair of coveralls from them.
And walks up and just starts talking to those. She's part of the construction crew.
Right. Again, these people that are in a sort of state of mourning for a coworker, and she starts talking about the inside business of slasher films and this, and it's just the way they react. I would say is such an odd thing. They're just like, yeah,
and in fact,
okay, tell us more, instead of just like. What I think, which is my own personal biases, of some weirdo walking up to you in the middle of the night and chatting about a subject, and following that with, again, the whole thing like,
let's do a comparo, put your knife or chainsaw.
Right. Which I feel like most people would think, oh, that's a little weird.
Yes.
And that's the other thing is, these people, their reaction to me to this whole town, I feel like she's not as much as an outcast as she thinks, because they humor her. Mm-hmm. They ask her questions, they listen, and it's like, so these people...
The sheriff never tells her to shut up at all.
Yeah, which, I mean, that's kind of basic. I guess that's, for what it's worth, that is basic human decency. At the same time, that sheriff lets her get away with a lot of stuff. There is a scene later on where, with nobody else having the context except for her, she runs down a boat dock and throws a machete at someone, who thankfully catches it before it hits her stepmother. And then she's put in jail, air quotes, and it's just sort of like, hey, I'm putting you in here so people don't get mad at you.
Yeah.
It's not even like, she wasn't even arrested.
It was just, you're being detained for processing. And it's a Friday, which means processing isn't going to go through the county until Monday, so I got you for 48 hours before my legal obligations have to have me unlock that door.
Yep. And even she explains what she does, and the cop just sort of goes, you can't be doing that, which is so...
She believes that a slasher movie is happening. She's living in a slasher movie. After the bodies are found, and...
Which there are multiple scenes of her just watching dead bodies being found.
Yes. And which, I thought would come up a bit more, but didn't.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she also walks around with a not a Jason Voorhees, a
Michael Myers.
Michael Myers mask.
Yep. Well, I mean, her first movie, well, not her first movie, her first movie was Bay of Blood, but her Go to Sleep movie was Halloween. So,
Which is a terrible movie, by the way.
we're going to disagree on that one, but
Yeah, well, they made 5 of them, that's why.
I don't think they made more than that.
They did. I mean, if you count the reboots.
Well, we'll put the correction up there.
So, for personal thing, I enjoy slashers. I prefer supernatural slashers like Jason or things like that, which is weird because of how this book ends. And the fact that it rubbed me the worst possible way.
And you're not alone on that. I thought it was jarring, and apparently the Ales and Tales book club they found it extremely controversial.
Which part? Just
The ending.
Okay.
Yeah, the ending was very controversial. I think a lot of people are confused about there being multiple culprits and plot lines. As Jade is going through this night when the slasher is going to happen, when the blood is going to kick off, she runs into like so many different people with so many different means, methods, motives, and there's actual death happening, but at multiple points, multiple times, multiple places, and in multiple
It's
ways.
like all around. It's mostly around the lake,
Yes.
which it's like that sort of plays into it, but even at the same time, it doesn't because it's.
The setting is the founders' houses are still being built on one end of the lake. The entire town is doing their have the Jaws on the big screen, and everyone floats in the floaties in the lake.
You know, adorable small town stuff.
Yeah, and meanwhile she's expecting there to be a kickoff, so she heads over to who she believes to be the final girl, Letha Mondragon, who is the daughter.
Mondragon.
I absolutely love the name.
It's
I
a
will say.
great name. I think it's a reference to something.
I looked it up once, and it'll pop up if it is.
And so we can't skirt around it. We have to get to the trauma potatoes. Content warning where it's
Her dad's actually molested her.
Yeah, that's
There's no
now.
easy way to say it. So it's actually also an inversion of the trope that the final girl has to be pure.
Right.
So this is an affirmation. No, you are still pure if you're holding that, because she does end up fitting the final girl trope. She ends
Right.
up being the final girl.
She does 90% of the legwork.
Yes. She works Letha Mondragon up to be the final girl because to her, she's the purest, she's the best, she fits the whole thing. So she sends her. And
Even though for what it's worth, we have like no indication of this. They met face to face
in the bathroom
once, and she was smitten by her. Which I mean, I think she just probably found her cute. I mean, and this is how she's processing it. But even then, it's like they hardly interact. The second time they interact, is it Lisa? Letha Mondragon knows what happens to her.
She writes out a whole note, gives her homework to read.
Right.
And it's like, read these, you need to, your role is coming up, there's a slasher kicking off, and you are the final girl. And she comes up to her and is like, oh, we're gonna get you help, honey. I read between the lines. I saw what you wrote, and I know what happened. And so Jade's like, well, this isn't how it's supposed to go.
Right.
All of a sudden, she's having to confront
That's
something.
the other thing. Her, this isn't how it's supposed to go mentality. She throws herself from a moving vehicle because she's getting told information, quote, she should not know yet.
Yeah.
And that's also crossing my mind constantly as we're dealing with this character.
And as they go to verify whether or not she was molested or not, apparently the mother
lies.
Yeah.
The mother lies, straight up lies.
Backs up, yeah, and she backs up what
Don't
Jade,
do that.
Yeah.
Tell the truth.
And that's actually one of the points about societal failures, because his body of work, he actually does bring up a lot of societal failures.
Yeah.
But yeah, she backs up the delusion that Jade had built up in her head, and so she's like, see, I told you. But meanwhile, Mr. Holmes, who had been giving her the homework and who had been trying to keep it going,
He's the
one who stays behind.
He's a history teacher,
Yes.
right? So yeah,
he stays behind. He tries to. Oh, I'm sorry, if I should have seen it. I should have known.
He asks her about certain specific genres and why they don't apply to her,
And why she does not talk about, why does she not gush over rape revenge slashers.
Which that brings in my mind again to pulling up. It's like he cares about her.
He does.
He doesn't just take her work and say, okay. He learns from her work. He knows all about it. He's comfortable enough.
To be honest, I thought he was going to be the slasher.
Which would be interesting.
I thought
it would be more interesting than who is.
I legitimately thought that her writings were going to get him to the side. As she was trying to make Letha the final girl, I thought he was being the slasher.
Yeah.
But
a lot of characters don't warrant much. There's a couple sleazeball characters. The dad's friend.
And the dad's friend who's also
The dad's
her
third
boss.
friend who gets chummed up under a boat because he's reliving his high school days.
Yeah.
Which if you're that person, shade.
Weird. This is gonna get chopped up, but...
Like I said, I'm trying to come into this without being disrespectful to the real life.
Because these
Problem.
characters, according to his afterward, these characters did have real people behind them.
Right. I think, well, he said Jade was someone important to someone else important. So there's that.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
his first manuscript, it was a completely different person.
Yeah.
But then upon rereading the news article about who
Yeah.
Jade was inspired by, he decided to change it.
Right, which understandable.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm trying not to sound like a terrible person, and I can't word things well. We have a show about wording things, and I can't do it well, everybody. The problem is, she's not an interesting character to me. She's not... She does, for what it's worth, interesting things, because you have to do that to have an interesting book.
I thought
But-
she was more interesting. I thought it was interesting how we were able to get into her mind and see how she worked. It was also
Right.
interesting to see how she processed things and her solutions to things. That's where, and apparently Rachel said that she actually really enjoyed Jade and getting into her mind, and that the book club liked her despite that. So there's that. And also, this is a good point for bringing up, we're in her mind a lot. She thinks about slashes a lot. She talks about slashes a lot. Do you know how many times the word slasher is used in this book?
I don't.
Yes.
582.
582, all right. You know how many pages there are? Do you remember how many were in your copy?
Oh god, like 238.
So I've got 401 pages on my Kindle copy, right? I put in a search to see 301.
Ooh,
I thought it was more. I legitimately
was I
thought.
close? No, I was like 500 something. No,
I mean, it was close enough if you had said 0.
That's fair. Yeah, it is. So Price is Right rules. I win.
Yeah.
As long as there's no other contestants.
Yeah, the word slasher is used almost once per page, except for 100 pages, and sometimes on multiple times per page. So it can get a little nuts.
Eventually the word starts to lose all meaning.
Yeah, I mean, and they try to spice it up because they bring up the Italian giallo genre, which inspired the slasher.
Right.
And I actually made the question to Rachel. I said, well, because the eventual ultimate boss is hidden this entire time, does that mean this book actually follows giallo rules more than slasher rules?
And I would argue it's not even a fake out killer. It's just
It's not, because it's straight up said.
because we're only around for what Jade sees.
Yes.
And even then, I feel like so there's a corporeal slasher and a non-corporeal slasher is the best way to do this.
Yeah, and one of these got
Which
5
one-
pages, and one of these got 400.
One of these got 400, but even then,
Even then, they only get credited with some of it.
it's also only speculated as to why he might be doing it. So the history teacher has an airlight glider. It's basically a lawnmower engine with wings.
And it's his excuse to go smoking.
Yeah, literally, because his wife doesn't like it. And one day it's flying and it just falls out of the sky, and it's a fake out death because we assume he's dead because every time an accident happens, people die in this town.
And Jade doesn't get to go see it because the sheriff holds her back from going out to the scene.
Understandably, because she just threw a machete at someone. But we find out later. So what happened is Mr. Mondragon, the father, he's not German. I don't know why I did that. The father, he possibly, because Jade has to rationalize this, that he somehow shot a small aircraft down with a nail gun. And he did that in the presence of his workers, which they come up like shooting glass. Like she even laments in the book, she doesn't know their real names. They're
So
like
the workers are
shooting
way back in the
glasses.
start where
Yeah.
she walked up to the group around the barrel. This is where they come from.
By the way, Shooting Glasses interacts with her twice directly and seems really interested in her, but at the same time,
It's much more fraternal
Yeah.
in my opinion, or paternal than anything else.
he's
Like,
one of the builders. This group of people are the builders at the founders areas, and the rationalization is that somehow this man shot down an aircraft with a nail gun, which is almost impossible. Even a pneumatic air gun or a pneumatic nail gun does not have the accuracy or range to do that with a single shot.
And Final Destination already used up their nail gun scene, so
They used it too many times. So her rationalization is, the people working saw him do that, so now he's trying to kill them. We don't know if this is true.
I mean, at one point we see him just spraying nails and like, ha ha ha, you got the wasps, right? But then she sees shooting glasses get.
He gets nailed a few times, which this brings it up again. So he
Was he a target or was he collateral?
Which also, following that, long range, aircraft shot down. Short range, barely sticks out of a dude.
I mean, Jade thinks he's toast because by horror movie rules,
Right.
he should absolutely be toast. But
I feel like Jane's a little crazy. I'm gonna be honest. I feel like she has a psychosis that's.
he dives into the water and he seems to nail him to the lake.
Oh yeah, nails him to the bottom. That is not how nails work.
I mean,
Even if you went to the thin ends, it's just.
yeah, you're not no.
Also, it cannot be a pneumatic nail gun because he's running around with it.
yeah.
So it has to be a battery-powered nail gun.
Right? Felt like no.
Which also you have to push against something to use.
Yep.
Not all of them. I know there might be like 3 people of the dozens of you that is like actually, but that's not. The nail gun's not my biggest problem with this. I should clarify.
And then on top of this, Letha has her moment where she's a culprit because she's
Right.
laughing about the wasps, right?
The wasps.
Is it wasps? Or
Yeah,
is
that's
it,
right. Her father somehow convinces this girl who up to this point has been she was smart enough to know Jane was molested by reading between the lines, but thought that her father was shooting wasps with a nail gun.
Yes, and then there's the whole point where Jade willingly goes onto their yacht with the
Yep.
potential slasher on board because they don't slash in their home.
Weird.
Okay, I mean,
Like I said,
it could just be she could just really like Letha and just want to be there. It was just a really weird. The entire yacht scene was just really weird.
which eventually culminates into, remember that 5-page backstory for that ghost? She's real.
Yeah, and she's the one doing everything.
She's running around ripping people's jaws off,
There's
like
a
just
pile
how she
of-
died.
There's a pile of elk that a bear did it, and a bear got this.
Oh,
other
by
guy.
the way, there's a bear that comes up later. It's not important.
Oh yeah, the bear starts.
Well, it's symbolic.
Well,
but
the bear
it's-
starts because they're like,
Right.
he got done by a bear, and also these elk probably got done by a bear.
somehow.
Yeah. Which maybe.
If it's a rabid bear.
Yeah, well, the bear. They also recreate Far Cry 3, and then they have to live in the pile of elk.
Oh yeah, they stay in like the elk pile for like 8 hours.
Because they think that Mr. Mondragon is chasing them, and
Which he technically is.
But
Also, he's running around in a gas mask, so they don't.
oh yeah, it looks awful. It does look awful.
It does look terrible, but also it's a. Oh yeah, she also finds safety gloves, who's one of the guys like riddled with nails in a bathtub.
Yeah.
So it's like, I guess there's not enough backstory for it. Like, there's nothing.
And also,
Because we're seeing it from her perspective, we don't get slasher build-up. It's just.
And was he actually just, passed out drunk and
Right.
maybe had a belt of nails on him?
Or an accident, or. We don't know because the story goes from 5 miles an hour to 70.
And it does not stop. It does not give you a chance.
Following. So they're off of the boat hiding. After that, they find a paddle boat. And halfway across the lake, Jade jumps into the water because her brain won't allow her to help Letha.
Yeah, because she has to go through metamorphosis on her own. And so, she has to push her way out of the elk guts alone. And
Technically, Jade's being a terrible friend.
yeah, I mean, Letha ends
Not
up
to.
helping.
I don't want to. See, I wanted to do this whole thing without victim blaming. I don't want to do that.
It's
I do. This might be edited out, which I'm okay with if it gets edited out. Trauma doesn't make a character interesting. It's what they do with that trauma and grow from it.
Oh, here's actually Rachel's. She said she personally loved Letha. We really only get to see her through Jade's idealized version. I was rooting for some romance between them, but the book didn't end up going that direction. But she struck me as a good, grounded foil to Jade. Yeah, and well,
She's smart until she's not.
and even going back to Letha's whole thing, she was about to burn down the houses.
Yeah,
Um,
for some reason.
I think it had to do with the fact that there was a worker who had like a brain injury, so they filled him in.
Right, that's because that's what happened is what kickstarts the ghost stuff off is a guy falls down into a hole and it awakens the ghost, and he gets ghost brain sickness. That doesn't transfer to anyone else.
And the only thing they can think of to do is to fill it in with some cement, which they had to do anyway because it was hollow ground, so they had to fill it in.
That's the other thing is during this whole thing, when she finally gets across the lake, they're playing a... How dare you? They're playing a preview of the founders talking about how their friend that came here was just so in love with this town and they wanted to build all this up with him in mind, even though they're building McMansions across from a lake that you literally can only get across with a boat.
Because they don't have roads yet, yeah. And it's also really weird that Jade manages to be on the yacht while they're playing this will, even though he died like 3 days before.
It's so weird.
It is, but I mean, again, that is
also,
a thing.
they start with that, and it's like, they're like trying to endear you to these characters who are already dead, I think, at this point.
Well, he was dead. They didn't kill off everybody.
Right. Sorry, she watched that, and then they all died.
That was why the yachts were there.
Right. No, that's what I mean. It's like they played that video giving you backstory on them, and then they killed them off. And then
Sorry.
Eats the wife.
And
then
even Jade starts to say like, wait a minute, no, I'm not supposed to feel something for them.
Right. It's like they're just pretending to be, even though they're like, yeah, by the way, we're going to donate like most of our wealth to making sure a bunch of kids graduate.
And here's where the whole thing comes in is, are they really helping, or is this how they feel good helping? Because Jade is left out by that because the scholarship kicks in the next year.
Which I can, like, we talk about understanding being left out on this. I feel like this is slightly different because it's a private thing versus the school is making a decision.
Absolutely.
And it's like, you have every right to feel sour about that. The problem with that is, and I myself am not I need to get my GED. But a lot of times you have no one to blame but yourself. Now, I still blame the school for some things, and we're not getting into that. But I do understand my own shortcomings and what happened. And to a certain extent, you have to take responsibility for that. And Jade doesn't.
In this case, I think it's more about, I think it runs more
Careful.
along the lines of the social commentary he's trying to put in. Where is the help going where it's needed? And in this case, we really only have Jade as the focus and how society is failing her.
Right.
Not recognizing the signs of abuse until someone completely outside of it sees it. Not necessarily her.
But we also see part of that, which is a sad truth of if someone doesn't want help, you're just not going to help them.
Yeah.
It's again, I don't want to sound like a victim blamer.
But of course, even then, Letha does straight up help her. Like
Letha does her best.
Yeah, she opens her home basically to her.
Yep.
They're basically living on the yacht, and she gives into everyone. Hey, what do you want? You know, do you want this? You want that? Showers.
She's a good
there.
friend for the 5 days that they actually hang out.
Yeah, it was
including the murder night.
Yeah, it was kind of nice that they got to hang out a little bit.
Which towards the ending of this, the ghost gets free, and all the town is on their boats. And the ghost just kills everyone. Also, we find out the history teacher, not dead. And then guess what? He's dead.
Yeah, he
basically almost drowns before he gets killed.
Yeah, which he goes out on his float and he's in a wheelchair. And
it's like, oh, he's alive. Well, not anymore. The ghost goes around basically just ripping everyone's jaw off. We get a scene where
Jade versus Ghost.
Well, I was going to say even before that, we got the scene of the town officer being killed, but he still shoots at the ghost, Jade has her internal thing. It's like, that's what a father should be like. And I'm like, you're right, but I don't feel like this character would have that notion.
His response, he was protecting the town, not her.
Right.
Because he couldn't, he was
in
not
that moment, there's no possible way.
Yeah, he was not initiated into like the whole final girl thing, so that was not.
He was losing his insides and then he dies. A lot of people die, and eventually
Mr. Mondragon, because I think they're fleeing, expecting him to still be the slasher, and then
he ends up helping people, which is such a weird 180 for.
Yes.
He's not just trying to hide away. He's like, oh no, I'm trying to help people, which is such a. So that's one of the issues I had. Is there is 2 slashers, they have nothing to do with each other when they easily could have. Considering like the ghost made that one guy go insane, we could have had that with Mr. Mondragon, but. As far as where his daughter is not aware that he's changed at all.
Here we go. The shift to supernatural caught me off guard, though I responded to it more positively than some of the book club members who felt the author was cheating by mixing the two, supernatural and reality-based slashing.
And this is Rachel.
Yes. I do think the author could have seeded supernatural a bit more throughout the book, although it's not like it wasn't seeded. I agree. They did have the legend, and it did come up every once in a while,
I
but
was like, arguably, it was seeded. It didn't.
it
grow.
wasn't nurtured.
Yeah.
It's on the rocky soil if you want to go biblical.
If you want to go, we always go biblical. That was one of my issues with where. What did they say? He thought he was cheating. I don't think he was cheating.
Oh, trying to like wrap it all together. Like there's this is happening here. There's evidence for this. There's evidence for a bear. There's evidence for this guy. But we're just going to use the lake ghost.
Right, and I don't think that's cheating. I do think it's a really bad way to write it.
I was.
Well, okay, sorry.
Okay.
No,
I was going to say I did not think it was cheating. I
First
just
and
thought
foremost.
it was a weird thing to do. Like I would have been okay
I
with
agree.
multiple slashers. Like
Yeah, that's
if
fine.
Mr.
That happens in
yeah,
stories.
If Mr. Mondragon was cleaning house, if Letha was just controlling the evidence.
I mean, Scream is the best instance of that, where it's multiple.
Yeah, Scream, because that's how they get around to different.
That's how they trick everyone. Is
Right.
But the ghost has nothing to do with that, except that it might have set Mondragon off, but we don't have.
She doesn't start to. I feel a little woozy, man. Cut that in.
Feel a little woozy, man. Following that, yes, we have the final confrontation. We shouldn't even say final. It's the first confrontation that we're aware of between Jade and the ghost, and she stabs it with some wrought iron because that's the classic ghost.
Yeah, because the machete isn't doing anything, and the gun isn't doing anything because lead's not doing it. The machete is made out of steel, which is part iron, but we'll save the metallurgy for another.
She stabs the ghost and pulls it underwater, and it dies. It dissipates.
Right, because the lake is a Christian burial site, so therefore
She's not supposed
be able to go down there.
However, that's not the final. That's not the final confrontation.
No, because
and it's also not the final incident.
Yeah, no, there's a wildfire going on.
Well, even before that. So Jade, I almost called her Jane. Jade, yeah, the framing is like higher than it was. Jade gets her revenge on her father. She cleaves his skull in half with the machete, which, for the record, 100% deserved. He deserved it.
Yeah, no, he got what he deserved.
The problem is, out of all this carnage happening, there's one person recording all of this who just happens to see Jade kill her father.
So now there's a third slasher in the mix.
Yep.
Jade
also,
herself.
Jade is kind of saved by an ex machina because she shaves her head earlier on.
Yeah.
And the only reason she's not grabbed is because she shaved her head.
Yeah,
that is an ex machina no matter what.
There are so many people who get grabbed by their hair and pulled under, and then they're all
But she gets saved because smooth. But then somehow, probably from, I would argue it might be Letha, the wildfire happening on the founder's side of the
No,
town.
the wildfire was Jade.
Was it Jade? Okay. That's right. Oh yeah,
she
that's
drops
right.
the lighter.
That's the thing. So that happens. Then she leaves and passes out in her old shack and her old stomping grounds.
Mm-hmm.
Wakes up, wildfire. Then she makes her way to the dam.
Right.
Because her brain is telling her mess with the dam to flood
the town.
Which is a terrible idea. Because she even says like everyone's leaving. Then we get a symbolic moment.
This was lampshaded because there was a story about someone who locked themselves in and they had to shoot out the window.
Right. But now the glass is harder to break.
Yeah.
One of the other things, a symbolic moment happens where Jade, probably just from a mix of exhaustion and smoke inhalation, can't stand very well, but she watches the trash bear that was part of the story fight a mother bear and her cub, but the mother bear protects the cub from the trash bear, and Jade has her moment of this is what a mother should actually be like, and then she passes out, and that's where the book ends.
Yeah, it just ends, and this is the first book in a trilogy.
Which is why I didn't like that, because that's a perfect ending to not continue anything.
That's actually what both Rachel and the book club decided was there were some pretty final things about it. It's like, sure, it was quick and it ended really fast, but it was acceptable.
She macheted her father, has a couple previous claims of bad things she's done, and the next book takes place 5 years after this one, so she didn't get a murder charge of any kind.
I thought she was going to become the next Stacey Graves, the next Lake Witch.
Turns out, nope, it's another guy. I think this one, with the way the dates are set up, it sounds like this one's also supernatural. But I'm gonna be honest with you, with our few remaining moments we have here, that I couldn't see this having a sequel. Not one that made sense. Also, because she returns to this town, by the way.
I think this may work better as a movie when you're out of her head.
That's one of the things I wrote down about my list that I can't use, is that it was written out like a screenplay or a script,
Yeah, because
but didn't have any of the actions associated with
because
it.
you're in her head for most of the time. You're stuck with the viewpoint as opposed to showing the incident where they fill in the thing, showing the witch awakening, and maybe even having the flashback sequence at the beginning of the witch being made originally, and then
Created.
Right, and then you cut into the Dutch teenagers, and then you have everyone else, and then you have Jade come in, and nope, there's our disaster.
But, as always, these are just our opinions. What we want you to do is go to your local library, or your local, or if you have a reading app of some kind, or if you just want to outright buy the book. Please do so and formulate your own opinion. And even if you don't talk to us in the comments, I still believe you should form your own opinion about things. It's very important to be self-opinionized.
Yeah, and you don't have to like every book.
Or every person that talks about the book.
Or every character in a book, or every show about books, or every podcast surrounded by books.
It's weird to say that Frode was the best out of all three of those.
Called.
So happy to see you. Come here. Those strong silver arms. No. Man, these guys are a little eccentric, but hey, they got the job done. I'm happy.
All right, I'm here. Let's get this show started.
What do you mean get the show started?
Yeah, we're here for filming.
You're 8 hours late. It's already downloading. We finished the episode.
Oh, who's we?
You wouldn't get it. Happy Halloween!